Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome everyone to episode 46 of Instigate Success, building an ABA franchise. I am Jake Schoen. I'll be your host again. Uh, every Friday night, 9 p.m. We'll be going over some news for the AAC. We got some news for the instigators as well. First time on the court this second season coming up is going to be tomorrow, so we've got some stuff to cover with that. Not the ABA, but it'll be the IBL. We'll jump into that and just get started with that. So our first game is and these are actually going to be aired live on Monday nights. I guess I pulled the wrong graphic for that. But the first game will be against the Woodpeckers, and our second game is going to be against the BBB. So got the whole schedule here um, for the IBL Gold Cup, and that is what we're going to be doing for the summer. So starting tomorrow and the rest of June will be the regular season for the IBL Gold Cup, and they do have a website up as well where you can go and learn a little bit more about the IBL and the Gold Cup. So this is our first time playing in the IBL league. It is a little bit different than the ABA. So the ABA is technically a professional basketball league. The IBL is considered a pro-am league. So it's a mixture of both professional and amateurs. We did get into the league though as a professional team. So things are set up a little bit different. I'll go into that a little bit more detail after we go through the schedule, but we will be locked into the championship because of how we had things set up with them. But this is a great opportunity for the Hoosier State Instigators to get a second look at some of the players that we're interested in having on the team for the second season of the ABA. And the other cool thing to note with the IBL is they're actually going to have an ABA team joining this year as well. So they also get a look at a lot of these players, more extensive look throughout the summer before they go into their first season as an ABA team. Again, uh, the process with that for the IBL at this point, it does seem that they're going to be kind of like a fill-in team, an exhibition team in the ABA. So not on the same level as the other teams in the ABA where they'd be playoff eligible, but they'd be more like a team that fills in for any kind of cancellations, rescheduling, anything like that. And they would still be in the ABA, just not like a playoff eligible team as far as I'm aware. They are still looking for potentially like some sponsorship to help them fund the rest of the season. If that does happen, they may wind up joining on the same level where they would be playoff eligible. But as of now, it looks like they will be more like an exhibition team. Regardless, it does give both them and us an extended look at a lot of these players going into the summer as we look to trim down the roster and well actually add to our roster and then eventually trim it down for the second ABA season. You can see there the games are scheduled so that it's 2 every weekend, and all the games are Saturdays throughout June for the regular season, and all of them are at the Crossroads Community Church in Bedford, Indiana, with free admission. So that is a really cool thing. If anybody is local to the area and can make it out to any of those games, they are welcome to go, not just to our games, but for any of the IBL Gold Cup games. They are all free admission. It's one of the really cool things about this partnership with the IBL and being part of the Gold Cup for their summer league is that they have provided a family-friendly atmosphere where everybody is welcome to come for free and watch a bunch of basketball games throughout the whole month. So tomorrow, June 1st, we will start our first games. And the games run from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. There is a bunch of teams. The first two teams we match up against, as I had mentioned, the Woodpeckers and BBB. So a little bit different than the ABA, where you can kind of like look up, stats and see the previous games and a little bit more information with the opponents that we're playing. Um, but keep in mind, this is a pro-am league, so a lot of these are teams mostly consisting of amateurs. So it's not quite as structured as the teams that we play in the ABA. But it does give us, extended opportunities for our guys to develop some more chemistry throughout the summer. And just because players are amateurs doesn't necessarily mean that their playing level is not quite the same. We saw that in our first exhibition matchup where we played against the IBL Shuckers, and we actually lost that game, and they were led by Lawan Whitney, who wound up joining the Hoosier State Instigators shortly after. But we actually have quite a few guys that were involved with the IBL in the past that wound up joining our team for the ABA in our inaugural season. So there's definitely a lot of talent to be seen and had in the IBL. And there's the potential for those guys to join either our team or another team in the ABA. So they're definitely going to ball out, and we've already got the target on our back, so to say, with us being a professional team and having that lock in for the championship that I had mentioned. So all these other teams are definitely going to be on the lookout for us. And again, I said on the IBL page, they do have a couple of divisions broken down within the teams in the Gold Cup. So we are like in our own separate division again. So that gets us a direct route to that championship game. There are three other divisions though. So they have an East, West, and Central division, and you can see we play against a good majority of those teams. I don't think we hit quite all of the teams because there are a decent amount of teams in the league, and we're trying to play this in just 1 month. But we do have double headers every Saturday, so that's another thing. So the games do start a little bit earlier than our traditional games. With that said, tomorrow we have our first game tips at 10 and the second game at 11. So two straight back-to-back games. And then the following week, we'd have a 9 a.m. and the noon game. And you can see there's some pretty creative team names as well within the IBL. You got the Woodpeckers, BBB. Then we play the Blue Demons basketball team, a very original name. Freebirds, Have You Heard, Rim Ticklers, Orleans, Fayetteville Lions, and the Limestone Legends. But the basketball team that I feel like could have a pretty cool logo, but definitely an interesting team. It's reminiscent of the Washington football team. Just go with the sport you play and add team to it. And the other one that I have seen, that drew some eyebrow raising is the Rim Ticklers. I'm not quite sure exactly what the meaning is behind that, or if they have a logo for that. But it's an interesting team name. Definitely not one I have heard in the past. Um, but that'll be an interesting matchup there. And the other one, we've got BBB. I'm not quite sure what that stands for. I do know there was Big Baller Brand, like with the Ball brothers and LeVar, the father of the Ball brothers. They had that, so I'm not quite sure if that's what they're going for or not. But definitely some interesting team names here in the IBL. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to see our guys back on the court. first time in the summer and get a preview as to what we can see from some of these guys going into the second season. We haven't officially announced any like team roster going into either this, the IBL Gold Cup, or for the second season of the ABA. We are still working on finalizing a roster. So we don't have anything like official at this moment, but once we do have players signed officially, we will be posting that. But what I can do is share what our roster will be for the IBL Gold Cup. Again, this is not set in stone as for what our roster will be for the second season in the ABA. These are the players that we are interested in either having on the roster or seeing more from them to see if they would be a good fit for our roster in the second season of the ABA. So just because the name is up there, we'll have, I'll split it into two sections here. So guys that have been on the roster before, so returning players, and then players that would be new additions. And again, these lists are the list that will be playing for us on the IBL side. Again, we'll announce anything official as far as if they are joining us for the ABA side. But I'll say you guys probably have an idea of some of the guys that we are going after, especially some of the guys that we're bringing back. We would like to have. You probably have a good idea of who we would like to have for that second season in the ABA. And we definitely used the fan input as well when it came into the guys that we brought back for this summer league. So we'll do that. So returning roster, again, these are the players that would be returning from the Hoosier State Instigators inaugural season to play for our IBL team. Chuck, obviously the team captain, and I think this is just alphabetical as far as I tried to do it. But Chuck will be returning for the IBL play. Um, AB, obviously him as well. So at the team captain, the 7-footer, the first All Star, leading blocker. I think Chuck actually had the lead in steals. If you didn't check out, we updated the website. Again, our website is apexofsports.com. Let me see if I have that uploaded here. But you can go on our site. We've got the schedule posted right on the main page there, and we did add something. So if you click on the Hoosier State Instigators tab, and you'll see we have the about the Instigators roster statistics. We also added a records page, so that's a pretty cool page there. It shows both single game and season records. So let me see. Yeah, Chuck did have the most steals. So he had 25 on the season and he had 7 in one game, and that was against the Southland Saints. So, yes, Chuck did lead in steals. AB again led in pretty much all of the stats that you would expect for our 7-footer. So rebounds, blocks, and he also again was our first and only to this point all-star player. He also competed in the 3-point contest and the slam dunk contest. Joe Bird, he is returning again, and he was our first guy that we signed to the Hoosier State Instigators. So definitely we welcome him back. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Chuck was actually the first player to score in Instigators history. So a lot of firsts there returning. Mike Pugh, he definitely is welcome back as well. He joined the team pretty late, so he's not on the leaderboards as far as the stats go from our first season. But I think he joined definitely after halfway, maybe like with 4 games left, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but he was a really nice addition down the stretch and helped us build some of our depth on the guards. And especially when it came to the playoff games or the play-in games, even though we didn't have that second play-in game go our way, Mike definitely balled out for that game. Um, and we are looking forward to see what we can continue to do with him. And we also have JoJo Hart as well. Again, building on that guard depth, as well as Lawan Whitney. JoJo, was the point guard for a good part of the season, pretty much for the most part, I'd say. He was a pretty solid point guard, and if you caught our short, he has the most views for any video that we posted. That YouTube short got like 18,000 views or so, where he completed the 24-second challenge, and he didn't just do that once. He did that. He actually completed that 24-second challenge twice. So he's definitely a great addition to have returning for the team. And Lawan, again, I had mentioned he had played in the IBL in the past, and we actually signed him after he lit us up on the Shuckers. And he did exactly what he did on the Shuckers, a bunch of 3 pointers. And again, if you go on that records page, he had the most points per game in the Instigators, both single game and throughout the season points per game. And he had the most 3 pointers, as well as like a 50% 3 point percentage from the field. So that is the guys that we are expecting to return for the IBL play again in the Gold Cup throughout the summer. And that it really is like a very solid roster, and really solid core of the players that we had from our first season. Um, you know, and I will say we've had some mentions of other players. Just because they aren't on this roster here doesn't mean they're necessarily not coming back. We still are having discussions with some other players as well. And again, remember we took into account the fan votes. So the players that did have the more positive fan votes, we're definitely still trying to reach out to them as well. But these are the players that have already agreed to return for the IBL. And again, we're still in talks to have stuff like officially signed. So once we get official, um, contracts and all that type of stuff signed, we will be making posts as far as who's going to be on the ABA roster. But I will say these guys probably have the extra step in front of them when it comes to making that ABA roster, because we do already know what they have done on the court. And all of these guys were very solid players in the first season for the Hoosier State Instigators. So I definitely think the fans would be welcoming any of these guys back when it comes to the ABA roster. We did also, again, this was over on our Patreon. So if you're a member on the Patreon, you may have already seen this a little bit earlier. I think about a day ago, we put this up. Um, and we did also announce some of the other guys that we have interest in from the tryout that we just had on May 18th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, May 18th, we had our first tryout for the second season. And from that tryout, we had a couple of guys that kind of stood out. Again, we had some technical difficulties, so we weren't able to stream it. We don't really have like a video or anything we could cut up to put something out on it. Me being remote, so that means I didn't get a chance to see any of the players from it, at least perform through the drills and whatnot. But we did have a couple of guys that stood out. We used player recommendations as well as the people that were there on the site. Um, and for the players that stood out at the tryout, these were the guys that we have invited to join the team for the IBL Gold Cup. And again, these players, some of them may wind up joining the team in season 2 on the ABA side. But as of right now, these guys are going to be joining for the IBL, with the potential to join in season 2 in the ABA play. We've got Kevin Stuntaboy Cameron. And again, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about these guys, but I do know. I think if you look him up, he does have a pretty good following on social media. So he may be a nice addition for that. We'll get to see him play. I'm not going to make too many judgments on any of these guys' playing styles because honestly, I have not seen them play in person except for maybe one I do know off the top of my head I have seen play. Um, but we'll get a first look at them on court tomorrow, and we'll actually be airing. So those games, instead of them running live, how we had traditionally done them through the stream, over here on the Patreon for our live game streams. With it being the double headers and the games aren't always back to back, makes the scheduling a little bit more complicated. So we felt it was best to do re-airing of the broadcast of the games. So we're going to broadcast those games actually on Monday nights. That's what those graphics were in the beginning. I'll jump back to those, but we'll jump more into that, but that'll be our first time seeing a lot of these guys on the court, and it'll be the first time seeing any of these guys in Instigators gear. So we've got Stunna Boy, we've got Lance Hopkins, Tyree Johnson, Rico Spikes, Jackson Stone, and T. Williams. Again, I apologize. I don't know a ton about these guys. um, you know, Going into this, hopefully we'll find out we'll collectively find out more about them in the games tomorrow. The one player I did say that I know I have seen play before is Jackson Stone, so I will call that one out. He was a member of the Indiana Lions, so that's actually a that could be a guy that we would have the opportunity to take from one of our competitors, the Indiana Lions, defending champions from 2 years ago. Jackson Stone has been on the Lions for the past couple of years, but I do know he's a big man. He's about 6'10", if I'm not mistaken. So we did see a matchup earlier, this in the first season for the Instigators against AB. So that may be some added height for the team going into season two. But again, all these guys have an opportunity here. I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but I will draw, kind of a comparison. But it's kind of like the summer league for the NBA. So you have the rookies that get drafted, the undrafted rookies as well. They have an opportunity to show out, and like preseason for any other league as well. And it's an opportunity for these guys to show out against other players in the same position as them, as well as you could even throw in the G League there too, because all these players are looking for the opportunity to jump up to that next level. So in that sense, the G League to the NBA, this would be going from the IBL to the ABA. But all these guys, they at least stood out enough in the tryouts to earn themselves a roster spot for the IBL season. Again, that's going to be all throughout June, so they'll have basically this whole month to show out, and then we'll have the championship as well for them to show what they're capable of. But this is also a nice opportunity for these guys to show how they kind of gel with the roster, or that core that we had from season one that is going to be returning again for the IBL. Um, you know, and it'll be a nice, a lot more, you know, information for us on the owner side, and it'll help out with the fans as well to know more about these players going into the season when it comes to that time to make some roster decisions, then kind of just jumping into it like we had in the first season. So again, this is going to give us a lot more information, see how these guys play as a team, who's a good fit, areas we can improve on as well. And it kind of helps us fine tune things without having to, make roster decisions immediately. So it gives us a little bit of time to kind of narrow things down, see where we stand, and then build on that or trim things down, going into the second season of the ABA. But that will be fun again. So uh, these graphics, I'll get those out soon. But Monday nights at 9, we're going to start airing the IBL games over on Amateur Night. So we had been mentioning Amateur Night for quite a bit. That's going to be hosted by Corey. Monday nights at 9 over on our YouTube. So a little bit different. It's going to be on the Hoosier State Instigators YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube, go over and subscribe. You'll get notifications anytime we put up some new content over there. And once we go live on Monday nights, you'll get the notification for that as well. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And if you're not subscribed already, be sure to subscribe. But first matchup, again, that is going to be tomorrow morning. We're playing against the Woodpeckers. And the other game that we have lined up for tomorrow is against BBB. And I'll be honest, neither one of those are official graphics or anything for those teams. I did not see any official content as far as logos or graphics for the team, so just decided to build some graphics myself for those teams. Um, but again, Monday night at 9 p.m., and that's going to be for not just this week, that is going to be for the whole entire IBL Gold Cup. Monday nights at 9 p.m. over on the Hoosier State Instigators YouTube channel. We are going to be doing game broadcasts um, for all of our IBL games, and we're going to recap all those games. Again, we have 2 games every Saturday throughout June, so we'll have both of those games recapped over on the YouTube. And the games are a little bit different than like a traditional ABA broadcast that we had done. Again, that's part of the reason why we're broadcasting this a little bit differently. And we're also, again, we're going to be using those 4K AI cameras. So really excited to see how that turns out. And hopefully we'll have some great content for Monday. But as far as the gameplay, a little bit different. Two 20-minute halves. So instead of being the 4 quarters that we had seen in the ABA for everybody that joined in our inaugural season, it is a little bit different. It's more like college basketball type of rules. So like the NCAA basketball rules, if you watch March Madness, that's the kind of rule set you should expect. So 2 halves instead of the 4 quarters. Um, And again, this is going to be different than the ABA. Players can foul out. So the ABA, there you could technically like foul out, but you don't really foul out. In the ABA, once you hit I think it's 6 fouls, you're still allowed to play in the game, but any additional foul after that point leads to more free throws for the other team. So technically you can still play, but it's not really beneficial for the most part to keep players in that already hit that. But this will actually you'll foul out after 6 fouls. Um, they still have it's like NCAA with the bonus and the 1-and-1 free throws after so many fouls, and then you go into the double bonus after 10. And let me see, skimming through here. Yeah, it seems like pretty much that's like the only major differences like from your traditional NCAA basketball rules. And then it also looks like any fouls within the last 2 minutes of the games are bonus unless the team is already in the double bonus. So that is a little bit different as well, because if the team is under the set number of fouls, traditionally, I don't think that would be a foul shot. But if it is in the last 2 minutes there, and the other thing is with those is the clock stops as well. But it seems like those are the main differences. But as far as broadcast goes, the main difference is going to be the 2 20-minute halves compared to the 4 quarters. So broadcast wise, that's really it's going to trim down the game length a little bit, and it'll also give us a longer stretches of players on the court. So substitutions are going to be even more crucial, in those long stretches of gameplay. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any media timeouts. So that will be another thing that is a little bit different compared to the ABA. Um, but pretty much, if you've watched college basketball, pretty much like that. And a little bit more about the IBL, because we did have some questions about the IBL last. Um, the IBL, they are, they host all their games in that Crossroads Community Church. That is the venue that we had the opportunity to play both, our exhibition game as well as our first play-in game at. Great venue that they have a partnership with. But they also have, their website they just put up. They have a little bit more information about themselves. They have players from a bunch of different leagues. Again, the IBL is a pro am league, so they do have both amateurs and a handful of pros. And they have players from the ABA, obviously, including our guys, the TBL, the NBL. Uh, Looks like they have players from Austria as well as CBA, had either currently or have played in the IBL Pro Am in the past. And, they have players that have D1 experience in the past as well. So it's definitely, we say the word amateur, and again, we're airing this on amateur night, but it's not, the traditional sense of what you would think when you think of amateur sports. These guys are definitely, up to the challenge, and they are looking to take on the Hoosier State Instigators for the Gold Cup this summer. All throughout June, we have the doubleheader games on Saturdays. Again, if you're out in the area, it's free to attend. Highly recommend if you have the opportunity and time to go out there and watch these guys play. It'll be fun. They actually are going to be running two courts at the same time because there are a good number of teams that have to play all their games on Saturdays. So they have the two courts running both again from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every Saturday in June. So that will be a lot of fun. Definitely something I'm looking forward to. And then once it comes to amateur night on Monday nights, 9 p.m., that'll be our look at, first look at a lot of those players. Let's pull that roster back up. First look at all these guys. So the first time that I'll be seeing them in play, as well as a lot of our fans will be seeing in the first time. But it also gives us a chance to, fine tune those broadcasting skills. Hopefully, we can get the broadcast looking even more professional going into the second season of the ABA. Over on Amateur Night, that's probably we're gonna try to fine tune some of that stuff. Make it look more professional. Work on both our commentary as well as like broadcasting. Um, Techniques when it comes to both the broadcast with the stream platforms as well as the quality of the stream itself. So lots of things to look forward to. And I had mentioned, we are locked into the championship. So this was a really cool thing again to be a part of with the IBL. So they have the Super Cup Championship. And they already have again locked us in, and then we will be playing the other. We will be playing one team from the IBL, which is going to be the champions of the IBL Gold Cup. So they're going to have a bracket that goes on, I think, in the first week of July. Maybe it goes on to the second week as well. But that will determine the winner of the IBL Gold Cup. And that winner of the Gold Cup will then face off against the Instigators. And that's already scheduled. You see there down at the bottom, Sunday, July 14th at 2 p.m. So they already have that set in stone that the Instigators have one of the championship spots, and then the champion of the IBL Gold Cup. Again, those are going to be consisting of the teams that we play in throughout June. And whichever of those teams winds up progressing through the bracket, they will face off against us. And it will literally be a matchup in a sense of the professional team, with us being the professional team, going up against a team of the amateurs, and you know they're going to have a chip on their shoulder for that matchup. So that's going to be a really fun, matchup, not just for us, but for those guys. And it's a great thing to be involved with. The IBL, to be a part of this gets us an extended look at our players, as well as an opportunity to scout out some of the talent in the nearby area with the players here in the IBL teams. And there are, let me count real quick. Yeah, there's like 14 teams, I think, if I counted that right. There's 14 IBL teams in the Gold Cup, and then we're the 15th team. So there's 15 teams full of rosters that we will have an opportunity to see play throughout June and July. And again, if these guys ball out against us, we're also going to be reaching out to these guys to see if they would be a fit for our roster. We've done that in the past. Obviously, Lawan is the one that we always, name drop when it comes to that. But we, again, have a handful of guys who have played in the IBL in the past as well. Even though we didn't play against them when they were on the Shuckers, but I do know like Chuck has played in the IBL as well as Joe, if I'm not mistaken. So I know those two guys as well as Lawan. So three of our core players that we are bringing back for at least for the IBL play will be former IBL players. So there's definitely a lot of talent to be seen throughout the month of June and July, and a lot to be seen on amateur nights. Again, that's going to be Monday nights at 9 p.m. on the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube. You'll get notifications when we go live, as well as anytime there's any updates or posts made over there with new content. But that is what we've got going on. We'll be able to jump into some more details, dig into the player performances, when we come to the show next week, and hopefully, that new camera system can help out with that, because that was one of the things that we had been looking into for it, was the advanced statistics as well as the player tracking. So that should hopefully help with that, and help us make some decisions as far as who's going to be a good fit for the Instigators going into season 2 of the ABA. Um, but that, I think, is all our big news for this week. Um, and again, I'll pull up that schedule. So 10 a.m. tomorrow and 11 a.m. We've got two back-to-back games: the Woodpeckers and BBB. Those two are going to be our first two matchups in the IBL Gold Cup. And again, if you don't get a chance to see that in person, well, if you can go see it in person, that's Crossroads Community Church in Bedford, Indiana, free admission, so anybody is welcome. But if you don't get a chance to see it in person, or you want to rewatch it, we're going to be broadcasting the game stream on Monday night at 9 on the YouTube, the Hoosiers Say Instigators YouTube. But again, we'll show that roster one more time. So returning will be Chuck, AB, Joe Bird, Mike Pugh, JoJo, and Swish. And then our new guys to keep an eye out for when we show that broadcast on Monday. We've got Kevin Cameron, Lance Hopkins, Tyree Johnson, Rico Spikes, Jackson Stone, and T. Williams. And again, these are the IBL rosters. So we are still working on finalizing a roster when it comes to the ABA. Once we make official offers to players and they sign the contracts, we agree to terms, we'll be making official announcements for anything with those officially. But I think that does it all for this week. Um, but again, if you have a chance, go out on tomorrow and catch these games. And if not, we'll see you Monday night on Amateur Night. That's going to be our first airing of Amateur Night. But we're looking forward to that. But until then, as always, be great and instigate.